Hello guys, I'm Super Ron, welcome back to the channel, and we are back finally doing some work on my Zafira GSI. This is actually a re-record of the intro because the plan today was to fit the new headlining in, fix a couple of little oil leaks, but things have escalated massively. So stay tuned and I'll let you know how we got to this situation. So this is my 2003 Vauxhall Zafira GSI in the iconic Arden Blue. I've always wanted one of these, and when this one came up 3 years ago, it was an impulse buy and I had to have it. As the advert said, these are the ultimate daddy cool. As it turned out, this was quite a special car. It was a new reg day car, so it's registered 1st of September 2003, where they have the new reg out, all the balloons, and this is a really early facelift car. It's well spec'd inside, it's got the factory sat nav, it's got the fold down TV from the ceiling, it's got the full heated leather interior. So when it came up close to me, I knew it had to be saved because it was facing imminent doom of being broken because it had a blown engine. So I got it delivered to Auto Shack and we started a full build series investigating what was wrong with the engine and how we could fix it. What it turned out, the fuel filter had been put on backwards. It had made the engine run lean and completely melted a cylinder. Surprisingly, it did still run and we didn't realise the extent of the destruction until we opened it up. But once the cylinder head was off, we could see the engine was no good. So as these Z20LET 2-litre turbos are getting on a bit now, and they do have their problems, I didn't want to buy one just off a pallet and be in the same situation. So I bought a full donor car, I bought another black Zafira GSI, but that did have its problems. My plan was to make two into one. That had a really bad smoking problem, which was suspected as a blown turbo. The blue one had a good VXR turbo on, so my plan was to swap the turbos and put the black engine in the blue one. Simple, but of course, didn't go as planned. The black GSI was quite a high mileager. It had 180,000 miles, but it did have service history. It looked like it had been well looked after. But as we started doing some tests on the engine, it turned out it wasn't turbo. It did have low compression on the cylinders. The rings had gone. So still in high spirits, I thought I could strip it down, do a quick refresh, and get the engine into the blue one. The more we stripped it down, the more I saw how worn it was. The cylinder head off the blue one was completely destroyed from the melted piston. The end of the spark plug had dropped off and everything in there looked like the surface of the moon. So I took the high mileage head off the black one and the valves did have a bit of movement. So I had 16 new valve guides put in, the Nevlock upgraded valve guide seals, and the top end was sorted. The bottom end looked alright, so I gave it a hone out. The crank looked okay, so I put new rings in it, new shells, and put it all back together. We had a fully rebuilt engine and we were good to go, so I thought. So when I started it up, we had a bit of a knock-in from the bottom end. It wasn't bad, but it's definitely something I picked up on. We ran it for a little while and the knock-in started getting worse. So I opened up the bottom again and I could see the balancer shafts, the bearings had a lot of wear in them, so I thought it was that. So I've done the balance shaft delete, put it all back together, and it was still knocking. So I stripped the underneath down again and I could see the shells were wearing a little bit funny. So the engine came out again, so I still had the crank out of the blue one, so I sent that away to the machine shop and they machined that down, got oversized bearings for it, got it all back together and the knocking stopped. So we were all good. But one thing I have always had on this since the day I put it together is we've had a lot of blow-by, which means there's cylinder pressure getting into the crankcase. The head was fully rebuilt at the machine shop, so I know it's not that. So it must be the bottom end rings. Like I say, this was a 180,000 mile engine. The bores did look okay and I put new rings in, which solved the smoking problem, but there must be something not quite right in those cylinder walls for all that pressure to get in the crankcase. And I think that is contributing to quite a lot of our oil leak. The gaskets are just getting pushed out. So why did we take the engine out? Well, it's to do the rear main oil seal. When I originally did the build, it was completely oil leak free. But then when I changed the crank, even though I did put a new crank seal on both ends, it has leaked since then. I suspect it's not actually the crank seal itself, but when you put the main cap on, they are quite common to leak along the main bearing. So that's what I think that's happened to this one. You had to drop the subframe to get the gearbox out, so it's just as easy to drop the whole lot together and take the box off. But it has blown all the way around the rocker cover gasket. It's all blowing out of the seals here. The breathers at the back are always misting around them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm at this stage, I was just going to get a full gasket set, do the sump gasket, rear main oil seal, rocker cover gasket. But now I'm thinking I'm at this point, I'm going to have a full gasket set to have a cylinder bored out isn't actually a lot of money. It's only about £40 a cylinder. I'm gonna have every single gasket I need to rebuild it. Do I strip it out, get them punched out, get some oversized rings, put it back together, and then really never have to worry again? I'm at the point of this car where I'm thinking of going down the route of everyone else, just break it for parts, get rid of it, cut your losses. But that's not really how I roll. I wanna get this right, I wanna do it right, and it has just been sitting here for the last 6 months because the rear main oil seal started leaking so bad. Every time you parked anywhere, it'd leave a little puddle of oil. I didn't want that on the driveway. I have missed the car. I think I do want to get it back on the road. So for a couple of £100 of just getting it bored out, a few hours of my time, I think it's worth bringing you guys a lot to save this car. So let's get stripping down again and get this block off to the machine shop. In fairness, probably what I should have done the first time. But I think when we strip it down, we will see there's nothing really that looks that bad. But let's keep to the motto, do it once-ish, do it right. You've seen me take the engine out of this many times now. So I dropped the cradle, gearbox off. As you can see, been quite oily in there. Luckily, no contamination on the clutch and flywheel. That's all dry, but it's not actually the main seal that's leaking. It is this cap here. So when I fitted the new crank, I did fit a new seal. It's maybe a little bit oily there, but it's definitely leaking from this main cap here, which means the sump's gonna have to come off again. But I did reuse the sump gasket before and just resealed it, because if you remember, we took the sump off and done the balance shaft delete because I thought it was the bearings in the balance shaft going. So we put it all together with new gaskets, took it all apart again to put the new crank, and then I just resealed the gaskets. So I think the best thing to do is just order a gasket set, do a new rear oil main, take this bearing cap off, get that sorted, change all the sump gaskets. The rocker cover gasket has started to leak as well. So I'll get onto Nevlock, get a full gasket set and get that here. But this is definitely a bit of job escalation. I thought I was just going to be fitting a headliner today, but this is back in Vauxhall life. So let's clear out the library and make some space and get this thing stripped down. So it's getting there, top and bottom's opened up, turbo's off, got it timed up, top dead center, inlet's all off. The other thing I've noticed is there's always quite a lot of oil around the oil pipe here. These are for the oil cooler. Another common failure point on these Z20s. As you can see, this one's leaking out of here. These are actually the ones off the blue one, because the black ones were really leaking out of here already. Seems like these have got to the end of their life as well. There was always oil on the oil filter. This is a brand new oil pump in the original rebuild. So yeah, there's always been oil around here. So I think I'll add oil lines to the list. But in the top is looking just as clean and tidy as when I assembled it. Good news. So let's get this head off and have a look down these bores. Head bolts out and off we come. So that's the head off. Nothing looking out of place there. That all looks good. Just turned the crank over a bit. You can see all the cross hatching still there, nice. But there are a few marks on the wall. Nothing major. Everything looks all right in there. But yeah, definitely some scraping. I don't know if you can see down there. Let's get the pistons out and have a look at them. And empty. So that is everything out. What a job escalation. So to get the pistons out, you have to take the girdle off the bottom. We did do the balance shaft delete, and there's the crank I had machined, all the pistons. I think we've got 3 out of the black engine and then 1 out of the blue engine, because remembered, still got the piston from the blue engine. This is the one that pretty much destroyed itself and made a mess of everything. So you can see just about 1 is darker. Don't know, everything looks okay. Down the bores, there is some wear, but nothing bad, I don't think. Who knows? As you've seen on the channel before, I always send all my machine work to Coltech to get done, but I've just given them a call and they're running 2 or 3 weeks behind before they can even look at it at the moment. So the other machine shop near us is Scholar, and they're actually the ones that machine the crank, because Coltech were a bit behind then and needed it done quick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run the block down to them. I'm going to take the pistons with me as well. They're going to have a measure up, see if anything stands out to them. But ultimately, I think we're just going to have them, each one, bored out, set of oversized rings, And that will do. So, road trip. Here we are. At Scholar Race Engines. And we are back. So the reason I wanted to rush down to Scholar today, their bore specialist is only in 2 days a week, and today is one of those days. So I could get it all measured up and give us some answers about the situation. So we have got some answers, and they're less than ideal. The bores did measure up slightly oval to a measurable amount. He said the case could be when the head bolts on, they can pull themselves true sometimes. So with a fresh hone and a new set of rings, that could solve our problem. And they can do that for £350. The bit I'm a bit apprehensive on that is what I did the first time 3 years ago. The oil control rings had burnt out, so that's why it's smoking so much. And with the hone and the new rings, that solved that. But I think because it's the high mileage block, it was just right on its limit. And as they're oval at the bottom, as the piston goes down, the combustion is just getting through into the rest of the crankcase. The next option, which I was intending to go down there for anyway, is to have it bored out. What I hadn't realised though, like when you have a crank machined, you get 0.25 oversized bearings to take up the extra bit you've machined out of the crank. I thought that was the same with the bores. You get 0.25 oversized rings to make up that extra gap. But as it turns out, that's not the case. You get 0.25 oversized pistons to go with those 0.25 oversized rings, which means you need 4 new pistons, 4 new rings, and then the £40 per bore to bore it out. So they priced that up, and that comes in at just over £900. So with that and the gaskets and everything else that I'll need, we're going to be rocking up £1,300 to get this right. So now that leaves me with a decision to make. With £900 to get it bored out, all the new pistons, and then all the gasket sets on top of that, we're probably going to be up at about £1,300. When I did all this the first time around, I broke the black Zafira GSI, and all the bits I sold off that paid for all the new bits I needed for this. So we're kind of at a money neutral situation. All I was putting in was my time. If you remember back from putting the engine in this the first time around, I worked through New Year's Eve to New Year's Day, and you heard all the fireworks going off in the background. But now we're in the situation where we're gonna have to start spending thousands of pounds on it. There's not really thousands of pounds I have to put into this. In reality, I am pretty deep in this car now. When I originally put it together, it's top to bottom, every single gasket. We had new rings, new shells, new oil pump, new water pump, new timing kit. The parts alone there were the best part of £500. Then I had the head fully rebuilt with all the new valve guides, all the valves machined in. That was £500 there. So that was £1,000 just in parts alone. Then when I had to have the crank redone and a full new set of shells for the bottom, I think that was about another £300. So that's £1,300 plus with all the fluids and everything that went in. We were up at about 1,500 quid. So if I'm gonna spend another £1,000 getting the block done, plus we need the new oil cooler pipes and everything else, we're gonna be sitting on a £3,000 completely standard Z20LET, which doesn't really make any sense. And is a standard Z20LET worth that? Absolutely not. Is a complete Zafira GSI worth that? Not really. As it just sits in here, I was going to do all the jobs and then stick it up for sale. At the beginning of this episode, I just intended to fix the oil leak, put the headlining in and a few interior bits, but look at the state of me and look at the state of the Zafira. So do I cut my losses? We're in a half broken state. Do I just sell all the bits off? There's plenty of Z20LETs out there for a few £100s, but I think we're just going to be in exactly the same situation as mine here. I just don't know what to do at the minute. If I could go back in time, even though my mission has been to keep this as a time warp example, an exact copy of when it came out of the factory in 2003, I wish I'd gone down the Super On route and done an engine conversion on it. Whether a Vectra GSI V6, a Saab turbo, even an Audi TT turbo, something like that, other than this Z20LET. I was a bit reluctant to work on them at the beginning, and it has given me nothing but trouble all the way through every single episode. I am still trying to keep that mission of keeping the car alive, saving it. It is a rare car. It is the ultimate Zafira GSI in the Arden Blue. It is a high spec car, but I just can't warrant carrying on spending thousands and thousands of pounds on it. So what do you guys think I should do? Spending £1,000 on a standard Z20LET bottom end isn't really an option. Do I go for the hone and hope for the best? If I'm going to spend that sort of money, I might as well go to a VXR bottom end. The heads are exactly the same, and I know my head is fully rebuilt. I've got the VXR turbo, but then it's just more money on injectors, maps, everything else. Then you've got exhaust systems, and then I'm going away from this standard example. If I want to go fast, I've got my RS6 sitting at home. So I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing the Zafira again. Let me know in the comments what you think I should do. At the minute, I am filthy, I am worn out. Give me some answers. Until next time, make sure you have fun.